My name is, as you see, Maxim Dorofeev, and I have invented by myself my title. It says procrastinatologist. It is not serious, but I like this, science, procrastinatology. It is a mixture of psychology, sociology, management, and all that stuff. And this science deals with procrastination. Do you know what the word procrastination means? Delaying, in some sense. Who doesn't? Okay, I will explain you later. Never mind. So my current job is to help teams, companies, and different people to enjoy good procrastination and make smaller bad one, because procrastination isn't something absolutely bad. In some cases, it is good. And why my talk called Way of Jedi? Nobody knows. Even I have forgotten already why. This tag, Jedi techniques, has been stick to this topic maybe 10 years ago. And after I have published in Russia my book, my first book, publisher insisted that I name it Jedi techniques. So nobody knows why it is. And right now there is no hope to get another title. It is still in Russia, and I'm not going to translate it in any other language because I'm too lazy for this. But likely I can speak a little bit English, so I will try. This topic was not my primary topic all the day, because initially I was, like many of you, a software developer, and I have earned my first money by programming at the age of 13. It was maybe too long ago, just believe me. And at the age of 13, I was making money more than my dad and mom together did. And then I have studied physics, and then I studied psychology. So what could go wrong? And how it has begun initially? Initially, it has begun maybe 15 years ago. 15 years ago, I was on my postgraduate study, and also I have at the same time two jobs and postgraduate study, so I was nearly screwed up. And in my vision, there was a common person. Who is a common person? A common person is a guy who has such amount of tasks in his to-do list. And there was me. Me was absolutely special because I have postgraduate study, I have one job, I have another job, I have a little bit of a girlfriend and so on. So I have a pile of tasks to do. And this was not painful because understanding that you are a little bit special is maybe good in some sense. But painful understanding was that when I clearly looked what is actually done. A common person who has such amount of tasks to do, he maybe do something like this, approximately the same amount. But me, who is special, approximately that. And it is, I think, overstatement. So that time, I was eager to find an answer to a very important question. Don't know, when you try to type something in Google, it could help you to ask correct question. So I decided to devote my life to finding the answer for this question. And there is Instagram, an account Truth Potato. It says very nice thing, very smart thing, that just because you are busy doesn't mean that you are accomplishing something. And my first book was devoted to that point, to this question. And today I would like to talk about some other stuff, because I'm pretty sure that most of you have read at least one book on productivity, one book on how to get things done and so on. Is it correct? I think most of you have read something. Most of you have seen videos on YouTube or somewhere else, especially while you are procrastinating. What can you do while you're procrastinating? You go into YouTube, how to fight videos, how to fight procrastination. It's a very common form. But The sad truth is that there is huge gap between to know something and to behave this way. There is huge gap, and many books have these disadvantages. They do not address this problem well. So maybe last 2 years I spent of thinking and researching how to fill the gap between knowing something and acting this way. My favorite example of huge gap of difference between knowing and behavior is, do you know, there is a very nice sport like boxing or martial arts, and my favorite example is don't close your eyes when a punch is coming. It is the first thing that coach or trainer will study you, and it is clearly understandable. It's very simple rule, but how to behave this way? Or my favorite advice from coach, don't let him punch you. God damn it, thank you. Thank you, it's pretty much good advice. Because initially my strategy was to let him punch me, so he is tired, and then on round 5th or 6th, I'm going to win. Thank goodness I have a good trainer. He said me that it is wrong strategy. I corrected it and I won. It never happens, I guess. And the main thing is not the knowledge. In Buddhist culture, why Buddhist culture? Because most answer I have found in Buddhist culture. In Buddhist culture, they call this knowledge conceptual knowledge. And what they value, most value, is conviction based on your own experience. There is a very subtle difference between conceptual knowledge and conviction based on your own experience. In Buddhist culture, this conviction based on your own experience is based on 3 pillars. One pillar is getting information, reading, listening. Another one is reflection or thinking. And third one is action or behavior. And in our Western culture, we strongly overestimate first pillar, getting information. The evidence of this overestimation is words like, I have read this book and it didn't help. Nobody's smiling because, yeah, maybe this book sucks because he read this book and it didn't help. In some cases, we tend to overestimate even obtaining information or getting information. And in this case, we say like this, I have downloaded this book, it didn't help. I have downloaded it twice and it didn't help. From Buddhist point of view, download the book, read the book is approximately the same. It's very, very beginning of the action or wisdom or something else. My favorite book, not from Buddhist culture, but Nassim Taleb. Who knows Nassim Taleb? My favorite guy. If I was woman, I would marry him, definitely. It is his first popular book, Fooled by Randomness, and he says that most of us know pretty much how we should behave. And it is the execution that is the problem, not the absence of knowledge. All of you know how you should behave. Problem is different. And we need tricks to get us there. But before that, we need to accept the fact that we are mere animals in need of lower forms of tricks, not lectures. So it makes things complicated, that knowledge doesn't help in most of cases, especially in personal effectiveness or in procrastinatology. Simple, plain knowledge doesn't work. To make things worse, we have another point. I call it world probabilistic nature. What does it mean? It means that there are not too much everything, every time, and everywhere, that generalizations. Mostly we deal with something, sometimes, or somewhere. And in other words, it could be put like this. There are no guaranteed ways for success. There are no secrets of successful success. There are only guaranteed ways for failure. And unfortunately, people are different. People differ from each other in a very strong way. So there is no hope to find any universal recipe for success. So what did I do? Right now, the whole Jedi technique. Jedi technique is a blend of practices, blend of knowledge that is aimed to help people to deal with their procrastination. Right now, I propose for each person who is interested in this topic to prepare their own recipe for success. But to make it easier, I divided the whole Jedi technique on 3 piles of components. There are components named vaccines. What does it mean, vaccine? Vaccine, it is something I should done once and result stays for me for a long time, nearly forever. It is vaccine. Another one is indicator. Indicator is something you can observe in judgmental-free mode. And third component is practice. Practice, it's something you should do to keep the result. For example, a vaccine, wait, it doesn't work. I'm not lucky today. An example of vaccine is to switch off email notification on your smartphone. You did it once and result stays forever. And practice something like to create a to-do list or something. It doesn't work. Why technology hates me? Maybe because I became procrastinatologist instead of software developer. Let me try to change this stuff. Maybe I will use this one, and it can help. Does it work? Wow. In a very nice way. Perfect. But, so, 3 types of component. And another point, right now it's just a conceptual knowledge. It is very subtle and very important question how to make this stuff your new behavior. And here I found at least a hint, and again, a Buddhist culture, in a book, modern book on Buddhism called The Diamond Cutter. Did anyone read this book? No? Oh, never mind. So the main ideas here is that, as Michael Roach, the author of this book, wrote that the best way of doing this is simply install a tracking system free of judgment or guilt that you use just to record how you are doing on constant basis. Just observe your behavior. In modern psychology, there is a fact known as reactivity in self-monitoring. It means that in most of cases, it is enough just to observe, just to pay attention to some aspect of your behavior to somehow modify it in desired way. And it started discussed and investigated in psychology since maybe 1970s, but it is successfully used for 25 centuries by Buddhists. And the simplest way of this tracking system is a daily checklist. I will give you the link for the daily checklist and some initial list of vaccines, indicators, and practices, and some of them I will describe right here, right now. The simple checklist, daily checklist, what does it mean, how it can be used? It has rows and it has columns. Each column for each day, so it would be nice to try on yourself, to spend maybe 30 seconds a day for each column to put marks in different rows. There are 3 kinds of rows. First, for vaccines, so the day you apply a vaccine for yourself, you just mark this day. Another group of rows devoted to indicators, some observations, like how do you feel, how many have you slept, and so on. And third group of row is for practices. So after maybe a week or 2, you are going to have something like this. These are scans of real-life checklists. And quite soon, you could find that some practices fit you, some practices helps you, but some of them do not. And nobody knows in advance which practices could help and which were not. So here I would like to cite my favorite author one more time. Nassim Taleb, he published this February the book Skin in the Game. I adore it very much. And he wrote that the knowledge we get by tinkering, knowledge we get via trial and errors or via experience, is vastly superior to that obtained through reasoning, because our reasoning machine is too weak. It is too weak. We could explain almost everything, almost every kind of bullshit that not necessarily should be connected to the reality. And I will show you, demonstrate it a little bit later. And before we go further, the main point I would like to highlight here is that the daily checklist is not the same as a to-do list. To-do list, the main difference is that to-do list is a list of commitments, list of things that you was silly enough to promise to yourself or somebody else to get done at some point of time. The daily checklist, in this sense, it is not a to-do list. It is not a list of commitments. It is a list of observations. Observations in judgment-free mode. So if you have done some practice this day, you just mark plus. If you didn't, mark minus. It doesn't mean that you are good or you are bad. It means that this day, I didn't do this practice. That's it. And here is the link to the daily checklist and to an initial list of vaccines, indicators, and practices. Who is going to participate on a workshop tomorrow, on my workshop tomorrow? So we will dig into this topic much deeper. But today, I would like to get your initial feeling, initial set of vaccines, indicators, and practices, and based on my experimental experience. Because this year, I have conducted a series of experiments on live human beings. I like to do it. And I will present you a result. So I spent a year, investigated how effectiveness level, or productivity level, or efficiency level, you name it, how these are connected to different practices and what actually people do usually. So first, just in case, I'm going to define these productivity levels, and then we will go forward. In my second book, I'm going to use 5 different grades of effectiveness or productivity. And these levels are, first one is I can't keep up even with urgent tasks. Another one is for those who barely keep up with urgent but cannot do anything long term. Third, middle level is for those who could keep up with urgent and sometimes they have resource, time, willing, or whatever to do strategic tasks. Fourth level is for those who are doing well with almost everything, especially with strategic tasks, and they are rarely in crisis. And fifth, final level is, I name it like this: everything happens in natural and spontaneous way. I get this wording from a book named Zen Wisdom by Shen Yang. And he wrote that enlightened creature acts with the world in natural and spontaneous way, creating no judgments. So I decided that natural and spontaneous way, very nice characteristic for this 5th level. So, and then I conducted 3 experiments, at least 3 experiments, and 2 other experiments are in progress right now. So I'm going to present some results, some digits, numbers, graphs to be more or less exact. And initial question, what do you think? Why it doesn't work? Oh, no, it works. During my first experiment, I found strong connection with effectiveness level with some practices that typically people do. And what do you think? What is stronger connected to productivity? The candidates are, first, properly formulated task list, say with very next action like David Allen in his GTD says. Another candidate is no new message notification on smartphone and desktop. Third one is waking up fresh and rested. And another one is regular task list review. Who think that point 1 is stronger connected to effectiveness level? Nobody. Two guys. Who thinks that point 2 strongly connects with that? Some hands. Who think that number 3? Who's for number 3? A bit more. And who think that number 4? And who is lazy enough to raise his hand? Okay, just to see where the norm is. Actually, the actual result looks like this. That number 1, it's how fresh and rested you wake up in the morning. So let me show this, the exactly results, graphs and numbers that I suppose in a IT conference we should love very much. These are graphs that shows how answers on a question, how frequently you are waking up fresh and rested at the morning, how frequently do you. So 5 levels of frequency, and here are effectiveness level. I excluded people from level 1 and level 5 because here have very small sample there, so it was not representative. And also here are the magic numbers. Who does remember what does chi-square means? Nobody? Chi-square. It's who has mathematical or statistical education? Never mind. Maybe you are so shy to raise your hand after confessing that nobody's remember what this chi-square means. Chi-square, it's statistical magic that can somehow show how bullshit these results are. And the main number typically scientists pay attention is p-value. I guess nobody knows what the p-value means, yes? Because, let me be exact. I expected something like this. So this p-value means that it is fantastically good p-value. Fantastically good p-value. Do you remember this movie? Where Quentin Tarantino says how much he adores crystal champagne. It's fantastically good beverage. He said about something like this. At least it sounds like this in Russian translation. So let us take a look at different angle at the same data. So here we see how often guys wake up fresh and rested at the morning, and what levels of productivity, on what levels of effectiveness they are. So those who never or rarely wake up fresh and rested, they are mostly concentrated on level 1 and level 2. And most of them also on level 3. But those who wake up often or always fresh and rested, there are a lot of person on level 4 and some of them at level 5. But you mean, what does it mean, world probabilistic nature? It means that even if you every day wake up fresh and rested, it doesn't guarantee you that you became productive. No, we have some guys on second level of productivity that wake up fresh and rested every day. So no guaranteed way for success. So from this point, I can first introduce first indicator. First thing that we could pay attention to is how long do you sleep. So first indicator that we should pay attention to is deep sleep duration. Those who have a fitness tracker or some smart bands, you could easily measure this deep sleep duration. For those who doesn't, you can just calculate how long have you slept. That's it. So first indicator. Another point that goes from that results are, please. I hate it. Another is vaccine, example of vaccine. Who has blue light filter on their smartphones already? It should help. It should help at least with falling asleep. If you don't, just try. What does it mean, this vaccine? What does it mean? I propose this vaccine to you, it doesn't mean that this definitely will work, but it definitely worth to try. It might work, might not. Nobody knows in advance how it's going to be working in your case, in your specific case. And another practice that you should repeat if you do like the result is no screening bad. Do you understand what does it mean? Most of people fell asleep in this mode. I'm not going to say that it is absolutely bad, but it's worth to try if it became better without this. Nobody knows in advance. You should try. My first experiment, another experiment, where I was investigated connection between effectiveness level and fatigue. That sample size, by the way, is not negligibly small for 100 people. So, and I used for fatigue measurements there's a magic scale named fatigue assessment scale, which is used by American Psychological Association. So it's not clearly my fantasies. It's more or less acceptable way in psychology to measure fatigue. And I looked at the connection between effectiveness and fatigue. And so I introduced 3 levels. First, rested, it means that level of fatigue is less than clinically significant. Tired are those that considered to be clinically significantly tired. And wasted, I name it wasted, but it is level of fatigue which is equal about the same of people just suffered a stroke. So those are, I named it wasted. Again, we have fantastically good p-value that shows very good connection between how people are tired and how well they perform. And another picture says shows the same from different angle. So those on lower level of effectiveness, there are a lot of wasted and deadly tired people. Again, in level 4, there are most of them are rested, and which is very funny there, which is funny in this point, is profile, fatigue profile that I have in my sample. I have approximately 1/3 of sample be fresh, only 1/3. 43% of my sample was from clinical point of view tired, and almost quarter of them was at the level of fatigue similar to that of a person just suffered a stroke. And the irony here is that about 75% of all that respondents were recruited on my Facebook page, and they answered the questionnaire during their working time. So if you just suffered a stroke, what should you do? Go to Facebook and check if Maxim Dorofeev posts a new questionnaire. It reminds me a joke, maybe a sad joke. Doc, what is the Wi-Fi password here? It is a critical care unit, young man. Uppercase or lowercase? It's our sad future. So for many of us, it became a problematic smartphone usage. So how we can handle it? Initially, the very simple way or source of hope how to handle this, just pay attention how many times a day you are unlocking your smartphone. You could install application, your hour for Android, or as far as I know, it is built in in iOS. And so it might help. So no guarantee, but it might. So that is why I call it source of hope. Source of hope. And let me show you another practice that I call, and I like it very much. It calls monkeyfy the task list. What does it mean, monkeyfy the task list? It goes deep to Tim Urban's model of brain. Did you ever seen Tim Urban's TED Talk? Who did? Also too few people. So I'm pretty sure that you will enjoy this video. I will give you the link. According to Tim Urban's maybe you didn't know that it is Tim Urban, but you know this model. According to his model, a typical head of typical procrastinator or typical person has a control panel inside and also has two characters. One of them is rational decision maker and instant gratification monkey. Instant gratification monkey is who drives us long time. It drives our behavior most of the time. Most of the time. So next time you wish to procrastinate, I think you will enjoy this fascinating video by Tim Urban. Here is the link to his TED Talk. I love this very much, so I decided not to talk about this too much. So what does it mean to monkeyfy the task list? Monkeyfy task list means that we should try to formulate tasks in our list in exactly the same way as if I was a monkey or you were a monkey. What does it mean, monkeyfying task list? It means that every task in our task list shall minimize the procrastination gap. I will explain what does it mean, procrastination gap, in 2 minutes. Begin with the verb. So it should describe any action, at least. So action, it strongly connects with the verb. But also there are good verbs and bad verbs. Good verbs are those that are not requiring thinking. They do not require thinking, like write, check, ask, compose, read, buy, something specific, or that kind of verbs. And also there are bad verbs. I call them procrastinagens. Bad verbs are like this. They sound like this: research, analyze, bring democracy to Cuba, something like this. It's not a good idea to put some stuff like this in your task list. Because, always when you take a look at this task list, analyze the report. I will do it later. So, later. Because most of the time we are driven by instant gratification monkey. Most of the time we are ready to do something small and specific instead of something big and even important. So that is how procrastination happens. Another point is that task should be formulated in a way that it requires as little thinking as possible. So we are trying to think as much at the beginning to think as less as possible at the moment of execution. And another point is that typical good formulation of task takes approximately 1 to 20 minutes to complete. It's very short, it's very small, and it is very easy to do. Instead of that, a typical person has something pile of flagged emails in a task list instead of task list. Who is task list this? Who has the same in his Outlook? Because there are a lot of persons who put flags on messages. But actually, these formulations are typically procrastinations, and we procrastinate them as well. Let me describe in few words what does it mean in procrastination gap. There was a story, real story, with a lady in one of my groups. I looked at her task list, and I have found a task that says vaccinate the cat. And she put this task for later. Later, because why she did that? I asked her, why did you put this task, very important task, to vaccinate her cat, on later? And I received socially acceptable answer. Typically people answer something like this: because I have no time earlier. Okay, it is socially acceptable answer. And my next question was, are you going to vaccinate it by yourself? She said, no, I'm not going to vaccinate my cat by myself. Everything I need to do, I should call the vet to make an appointment. And then I see a thinking in her head, and then she smiled up and said, wow, I can call the vet today to make an appointment for tomorrow. But stop, I have no time to vaccinate the cat. This week, definitely, I have no time to vaccinate the cat. But I can call the vet today to make an appointment for tomorrow. But no time this week to vaccinate the cat. So, very strange situation. It means huge procrastination gap. Procrastination gap is imaginary distance between what was written down in our task list and what actually should be done. So she wrote vaccinate the cat, but very next action was actually call the vet. So it's very common cause for procrastination, huge procrastination gap. So monkeyifying task list this way make you a little bit more effective or productive. And also I have evidence with fantastically good p-values. So here are distribution of answer, how frequently do you formulate the tasks clear and simple as you were a monkey. So those who never do, they rarely gets higher than level 3. And those who do it always, most of them are at level 3 and higher. And at least half of them on level 4 and some of them at level 5. And the same data from different angle shows like this. So those who are on second level of effectiveness, they sometimes or rarely or even never, half of them do not pay attention to task wording. And those who are on level 4, at least often or always cares how do they word tasks. So here, another good practice to monkeyify the task list, to word the task as you are small and stupid monkey. Sorry. And another point, I have another vaccine. I have 2 more points to share. Another vaccine is aimed to concentration and focus. These are what we lack in our modern days. It's remind me another joke. You know, Doc, I do have a problem with focus. Sorry, what was I talking about? Who is familiar with this situation? I have a problem with focus. Sorry, what was I talking about? And that is the problem. And the first vaccine that can handle this or can help with handling this is turn off notifications. Notifications of your smartphone, emails, most of them, not all of them, but most of them. I think very few notifications really help. And this vaccine is extremely helpful for at least 87% of those who was on my corporate training on corporate programs in Russia. But why do I say about 87% of those who are participate in my corporate programs? Because experimental results surprisingly show no difference, no connection between effectiveness level and notifications. But personally, I do strongly believe that something goes wrong here. So I don't know why. So instead of this picture, I prefer to show you this one. So 87% says that it is extremely helpful, but the direct experiment right now didn't show any connection. So what notifications typically I recommend to switch off? For emails, for chats, because as far as I know, right now we tend to communicate less via emails, but more via Slack, WhatsApp, and instant messaging. All that crappy stuff. And that kills your productivity, actually. And right now, I'm not going too deep into discussion of this, because every time when I recommend to switch off those notifications, I should talk not to your monkey, not to your rational decision maker, but to another characters in your brain. I call them cognitive bugs. Cognitive bugs. Those are cognitive biases which are irrational, illogical, but they strongly affect our behavior. There are a lot of them, and most common of them like this: I'm not distracted by notifications, so why I should turn them off, or I can miss something urgent, or I'm so special I cannot afford turning this notification off. So most of these objections was addressed or were addressed in my previous talk here, so I prefer just to put here a link and not stop right now on this point. And here, instead of this, instead of working with those objections, I would like to say another sad joke. Sad joke that is connected to distraction, connected to notifications. I don't know if it also funny somewhere outside Russia, but you know, alcohol is fully leaves a body in 21 days after the last drink. So for most people, it means never. It is the joke, but the sad truth sounds approximately like this. Deep thinking, real thinking process starts in approximately 10 to 25 minutes. Sounds funny after last drink. No, after the last distraction. Do you understand the point? So real deep thinking process starts in approximately 10 to 25 minutes after the last distraction. For many people, in most of companies, it means never. Thanks to instant messaging and all these notifications coming from here and there. Never. And what do you know? Do you know what typical person who is not able to think trying to do? He's trying to communicate via others, via messaging and Slack, to prevent them from thinking. So there are a huge amount of companies where nobody's thinking and everybody sends to everyone all that Slack messages and WhatsApps. And nobody's thinking. It's deadly. So I recommend just to try to live at least a couple of days without notifications. Maybe you will be surprised. And young people sometimes really are surprised because it happens that they started to think first in their life, just to switch off notifications. What is this terrible unknown feeling? What's happening in the head? You are thinking, great. So, and final practice, another practice that I'm going to share with you today, sounds like this. Get at least one green task done. It's practice. What does it mean, green task? It has nothing in common with environmental friendly practices or so, something. Green comes from that picture. Who is familiar with Aquino Model? Aquino, he's well familiar in quality deployment function, quality deployment activities. And he has a model, maybe in early 60s, the model that says, in our IT language, that features that we are going to develop in our products could be different types, And each type of feature can be characterized by how end user satisfaction depends on level of implementation, how good the feature is implemented. And two main categories of features are must be. Must be means that if the feature is not implemented at all, or it is implemented worse than acceptable level, you're in trouble. Nobody loves you. Nobody loves your product. If it is implemented in an acceptable way, it's okay. If it is implemented perfectly, it's okay. Must be feature. Another one is exciters or delighters, wow features, those which are nobody cares about if them are not implemented, but if it implemented and somehow works, it makes people feel good. If it even work in a good way, it makes people excited. So these are green tasks. So I was thinking about this model when I was in product development or somehow concerned to this. And at the same time, I looked at my task list and I found that there are green tasks and red tasks as well. What do I mean by red and green tasks? Red tasks are those that can help me to avoid something bad. Green tasks are that can help me to become closer to something good. And rarely there is a mixture of these tasks. Practically never we can face to a task that you are in trouble if it is not get done, and you became happy if it is. So what the outcomes for these red and green tasks? Independence of level of implementation. So if red task is not implemented, so you are screwed up. Bad idea. If it is done cock-handed, as far as I know, United States version is half-assed, which is the friend of mine from UK told me that cock-handed is a very good analogy, and for about several months I was truly believe in that it is O instead of A, because it would be much closer to Russian analogy of this word. But anyway, cock-handed. So, okay, if red task is cock-handed, okay, you know, Mr. Mackey from South Park says, okay. If it's perfectly done, okay. If a green task is not done at all, okay, no problem. If it is done at least somehow, it's good. If it is done perfectly, it's really excellent. And what happens typically with us? In case we have pile of tasks, red tasks and green tasks. I said red tasks and green tasks. Due to unknown reason, typical person starts with red task. He does red task, at least somehow. Then, in the most sad ways, in most sad cases, he activates perfectionist inside his head, and he decided to do it perfectly and do a perfectly red task. And then, sadly, decided to postpone for later the truly important task, green task, because nobody will kill him if it is not done today. Somebody will if this one is not, but nobody will if this one is not. So instead of this situation, it would be nice, surprisingly, it would be much better if we go to this situation. No, because we have limited resources, whatever it be, time, willpower, mind fuel, whatever. We have a limited amount of tasks transition, to put it simply. So in this case, surprisingly, when every task is cock-handed, summary is much better, because here we have MK plus good. In previous situation, we had MK plus MK, which means MK. But one task is perfectly done. You see, everything what has been done perfectly. In summary is okay. But here, everything has been done cock-handed, and it is good. It's very important point. But most of us prefer to do perfectly whatever they do. And in this case, it reminds me another joke. Oh, Father, do I live right? Yes, but for not. So it's a very sad joke, I guess. And most of us do it right, but for not. And recently they have published a book. Who has read this book already? From guys from Basecamp. No? The book named "It Doesn't Have to Be Crazy at Work." I love this book very much. Oh, I love this because it makes me cry almost on every page. And if I was working in some corporate structure, I would cry more, because sometimes it makes me funny because I'm a freelancer right now. But even some remembering from my corporate past made me cry. So the main point, they say that it's not a problem to find more time to do work. Too much shit to do is the problem, actual problem. Too much red tasks that we, due to unknown reason, commit to somebody to accomplish someone, that is the problem. And we have no space left for truly important stuff. And of course, the strategy, the typical strategy to finish all that urgent stuff first and then go to what is truly important, not the best one. So that is why I propose this quite simple practice. Get at least one green task, maybe two a day, a week, whatever, at least something, because there are a pile of red tasks. You are not able to finish all of them, because actually we do not do red tasks. We do those tasks that we perceive to be red. Most of them are brown, actually. And it's infinite pile of those tasks that we perceive to be red. So that is why before going to all that weird activities during the workday, try to do at least one green task, couple of times a week. It will make a huge difference. Do you have an evidence? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Maybe this evidence also with fantastically good p-value says that those who are on level 4 and level 5 of effectiveness very often or always do something green, something which is not urgent but make you closer to something good. And those who are on lower levels of effectiveness typically do not, or rarely or never. But again, the same results from different angle. Those who are always do some green tasks, they almost half of them, more than half of them, are on level 4 and level 5, actually. And those who never do, most of them are on level 1 and level 2, sadly. And it is from a sample of 700 people. It's not negligibly small. Maybe it cannot be generalized on every society, because those people were recruited via my Facebook. They were Russian. You remember, 2/3 of them have a clinically significant level of fatigue and so on. But here are the results. But maybe most important result looks like this, because when I started this experiment, I immediately got a question. A question said, Max, and how it is connected to happiness? Okay, I put another questionnaire to understand the happiness level of those who were answering previous questions. And I got 400 people answered. And that is how it is connected to happiness. It doesn't mean that doing at least one green task a day make you happy, no. But those who rarely do, not too much of them are happy. And those who often or always do some green task, at least 50% of those people feel happy. They show signs of happiness. Maybe they are not happy, truly happy, but they show signs of happiness. And the same results from different angle. So those who are unhappy, most of them sometimes or rarely or even never do something non-urgent. And another happy person, happy people, typically often or always do something like this. And again, fantastically good p-value. Fantastically big good p-value. So what do I have at summary? I will show you the link, again, the link to the daily checklist template, to the list of vaccines, indicators, and practices. And those that I covered today with vaccines, blue light filter on screens, on every screen, desktop, smartphone. Also, turn off notifications as much as you can. Them typically useless stuff. Just observe these things. How long do you typically sleep? How many times a day do you unlock your smartphone? You will be surprised. Yes, we do have a little bit of time. Recently, I started to teach in school. The same topic on procrastinatology is additional education in school. And also, I asked my students in school to install the software that counts unlocks. And that is very famous school in Moscow, very strong school in Moscow. They also have restriction policy on smartphones. So that is why when I come for my lesson, it is eight lesson a day. In a school with restricted use of smartphones, they have 3 hours, typical student have 3 hours of screen time and about 200 times of unlock. in typical school day, in school where smartphones are mostly forbidden. Okay. Okay. So, and 3 more practices that you could try, at least you can try. No screen in bed, it's quite simple. So, just try. Maybe you will like it. If you don't, you can reverse it. Monkeify the task list. Don't be a smart. It will make you smarter. And get at least 1 green task done. Maybe weekly will be enough. 20-minute task a week could make a difference. You can try, just try. And so, as I promised, here is the link, again, the link to the checklist, a simple Excel spreadsheet with all lines. And there is a document with a list of different other vaccines, indicators, and practices. Some of them we are going to cover on my workshop tomorrow. And also, on this link, I'm going to upload the video as soon as it is ready. So, I think that's it. Procrastinate less and enjoy those procrastination that is still with you. So, thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you, everybody. I think we're running way beyond the time frame, so
Really?
we'll make sure that the questions are going to be answered on Slack. There are quite interesting questions, but
Really?
Yeah.
Because I have no Slack.
I mean, we can answer in the DevTernity profile, so you don't need to have Slack.
Thank
Yeah.
God.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.